How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video I'm going to be meeting up with my buddy John Thomas. He has a piece of land that's between 10 and 15 acres, and we're going to discuss his land management plan to help foster good habitat for the deer. And this is a great video for a lot of people out there who have 5, 10, 15 acres, maybe even 2 acres. But there are some things you can do to help encourage the deer to come and stay on your property. Some of the main things you want to keep in mind is deer need food and they need cover to feel safe. And so we want to provide those types of things. We want to establish bedding areas by providing more cover, and we want to establish feeding areas, and we want to break our property up into sections where we can get the deer into those little safe havens for bedding and then pull them out toward those feeding areas where we might even be able to get a chance to hunt them in the fall. So let's head over to John's and look at his land management plan.
All right, well, why don't we kind of do an outline of the property first. Okay. And you can see here that it's highlighted right at the house.
Right.
And this is my drive. And basically my property line follows this tree line right here on this outside edge.
Okay.
So we have a small plot of about 4 acres here that belongs to this home, and about 1.5 acres here. Back here it's hard to see, but there's a driveway, and that's pretty much where the property line goes to a certain point. It comes over to this corner here, and as you're going to see, this is an oddly shaped plot. And then it takes a line right to here, just inside this tree line here.
Right.
And basically that line follows up into here until where it kind of shallows in, and then continues, and then right through here it gets really narrow, and it comes within just a couple of feet of this pipeline that runs along the top here.
Yeah. Now
this is the lower section of elevation of my property.
Okay.
Okay. So after this point, you can kind of see the line. This tree line, there's actually a rock wall there that you'll see later, and it comes down to this point, and then it makes a turn right about here, and then comes behind this gentleman's house, and then comes right to the road. Mm-hmm. This is another small plot of land. He only has maybe a couple of acres. This farm right here, I want to say they have around the same amount as mine, maybe a little bit smaller. You can see that their tract of land follows this outside line, right, but then cuts in a little bit more shallow, and then comes in around their pond.
Okay.
Now, this gentleman here allows a couple of hunters, very respectable guys. Every year they come over and they introduce themselves to me again, and just letting me know what their plans are, which is really nice to work together with them. Back here on the other side of the street is the original bedding area for many years until they started recently cutting it back every fall.
Okay, real quick, why don't we just go take a quick look at that, and that'll give us a on the ground perspective, and then you can keep explaining this.
Sounds good.
So right now, this overgrown field across the street from your house, you're saying is their primary bedding area.
It is up until the season, and the property owner sends a company in it and clear cuts the entire thing. So they lose it every year. Now they didn't always do that. So this was always their designated area. This was always loaded with deer. And since they've been doing it for about 2 years now, once they clear cut this, the deer pretty much drop in half numbers after that for the season.
So basically what you want to do is create that bedding area on the top of your property, right, to get them using that and staying there, so it works in your favor for hunting season.
Or all year round. So on the back side of this property, we have about 8 acres of land that is heavily hunted.
So, and this is the 8 acres right in here?
The 8 acres is going to follow this line up and come up top here and then wrap around this gentleman's house here.
Oh, so above, off the screen here?
Right. I will kind of scroll up a little bit so you can see.
All right, so this is heavily hunted. This gets a few hunters, right? You said they come over and introduce. Okay.
it's generally just one guy, but he does
Okay.
have a friend that hunts with him occasionally.
Okay.
Over here on this is actually a horse farm. She has this patch of woods here, and you know, a very small spot here, and then there's actually a finger here, which is actually a little thicker than it appears here now. She has one gentleman that hunts there. He's not there too often, but every once in a while, you know, we are going to get pressure from this side and this top side.
Okay.
Another patch of property that's very close is here. It's about 20-some acres, and it's only himself and his son that hunt that 20 acres. So I'm not really too worried about that, and him and I are actually on the same page with a lot of things that we have going on around here.
With deer management.
With deer management.
Now, real quick, John, on this side here, if you want, can you scroll that up a hair for us? As you can see, the roads here, there's not much woods along here. And so as you look at the whole layout, on this side of your property, you're not experiencing much, if any, hunting pressure. On this side, the upper side, you are, you know, getting the hunting pressure. So obviously, I'm imagining you built that into your plan as far as where you want the deer to be and what you're putting there. So why don't you explain that to us? And when you do that, obviously we're focusing on where do you want the deer to be bedding down and where do you want the deer to be eating. That's sort of a major part of your land management plan here. And then deer that aren't even in those two areas during the day, obviously you probably want to encourage some travel patterns to get in there from other properties.
Right.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about that.
So let's talk about the deer movement in general.
Okay.
Okay. Our herd that stays on the property on a regular basis is pretty small. It's about 8 deer.
Okay.
At any time. And depending on the wind, they will come onto the property from different locations. The majority of the time, they're going to come back from this back corner right here.
Okay. So they're bedding off-site somewhere in this area over in here, you think?
Right. And then they're sometimes using this corner, which we're designated as the bedding area for them. And during hunting season, this is this portion that they'll travel back and forth all day hiding.
Okay. Now, real quick, and we'll show some footage of that in a little bit. But so on this side, explain that what's there that keeps the deer there bedding at certain times of the year, and what's here that they go back and forth throughout the day in that zone right there. What's going on right there?
Well, in this center right here, this area, there is a retention basin, which is pretty much useless because it never retains any water.
Right.
There's good drainage as it is. Up top here, there's a mound of topsoil that's been there for 12 years, which they really utilize during hunting season. So they have a 360 degree view of around them of any predators, basically humans, at any given time.
And so and I'll just show you real quick what this topsoil looks like, but it's about a 6 foot high or a little bit more mound of dirt with a somewhat flat top that the deer actually go up on and lay on. Because especially in hunting season, a lot of your leaves are down. It just gives them a vantage point that they can see around, as you said, 360 degrees, which is an interesting concept. I don't think that you necessarily put the mound there intentionally.
No.
But that is a great education of how deer might utilize that. You might even want to consider that in your land management plan, especially if you're in a somewhat flat area. Giving the deer a little bit of a vantage point, getting them up in the air, making them a dirt mound of some type, may actually bring them in to bed down. Now, picture that though, they're up in the air, it's wide open, maybe something gets them a little nervous, well they're going to get down and head on over to that real thick cover you have by that retention basin, maybe leave them feed, and maybe they'll go back and forth doing that all day long, as you were saying. So that's something I just wanted to point out to the viewers. You might want to consider that as part of your plan. So continue to explain that to us then, John.
So there are a couple reasons why we're going to keep this as a bedding area. One, they're already somewhat using it. And then there's this house that's relatively pretty close.
Right.
This is suburban hunting.
Right.
But, who wants to hunt right next to a house?
Right.
So nobody really hunts this property right here. So we're just going to kind of cut this area off and designate it just for the deer.
Right.
So no pressure, no hunting.
Yeah, no one's even going to walk in there.
It's just for them. It's a safe haven. This is the neighbor that is close to the bedding area that we were talking about. Now there's not much property there. There's no pressure from this corner lot, which makes it ideal for a safe haven for the deer. The other reason is that we're going to put a staging area of a small food plot so that keeps them there before traveling to their main food source.
Right. And another thing too, if I can just point this out, the reason I really like your selection here is a lot of your hunting pressure is up in this region, and there's no real hunting here. So that in the layout of your property in relation to all your neighbors, that is a nice sort of isolated area from hunting pressure. So the deer that are getting pushed from up here, they can come down and hide out in that pocket right there. So I just think you made a really nice choice there with that, choosing that area.
Thanks. And then all our pressure is going to be in this section of the property right through here.
Mm-hmm. That's where you're going to focus your hunting.
Right.
Okay, now talk to us about how you were explaining about the staging area here. So around the edge of the bedding area.
Right. We're going to put a small food plot around the side. We're also going to put some plants in there to make it a little bit thicker cover for them to get in and out and have a little bit more privacy and seclusion. We're also going to, unfortunately, I have to take this pile of topsoil away for stuff that I need around the house.
Okay.
But what we're going to do is put another one,
create a new one
inside the center of that basin. So when they do feel the pressure and they feel a need to have a vantage point, they can get up on it.
Right.
And other times when they don't need it, they can get down in there. And I think one of the reasons why they really like that is that it helps a lot with the wind.
Right.
Deer don't like the wind, and this gives them a way of escaping that.
Right, sure. Okay, so now you were saying deer also come from over here. How have you incorporated that in your overall movement pattern that you're trying to capture as far as getting a drop on a deer? Let's say they're coming over here. What are you going to do?
Well, we've already started putting a fence up to kind of deter their route but for the most part, this gets cleared cut now.
Okay.
So once this gets cut, the movement from here to here isn't as much anymore. So this herd that comes from over here generally is going to come down the backside of this horse pasture here and then cut in through this small section, which we can utilize with our stands here and here.
Now you were talking a little bit about putting a food plot along the edge here. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Right, so we have an abundance of acorns
that
get dropped there on a good season. So what we're simply going to do is put a T-plot in, which means that the part of it's going to come straight out of the woods, and then the rest of it, when it comes out of the woods line, is just going to follow the woods line up and down, keeping them from coming across here and trying to hoop back around over to the bedding area. This property gets no pressure whatsoever, and they've known that for years. So it's natural for them to want to always cut across here and actually go all the way out of their way to get over to this bedding area.
Okay.
So we kind of want to eliminate that. So if you're sitting in the stand and we don't have anything to keep them there besides the acorns, chances are when they break this woods line, they're going to dart this way and come up around to here when we want them to run the actual line.
Right. All right, and now what about the rest of the wood patch? Are you going to do? What's your plan with this? Any plan at all with?
Yeah, actually, so down here is an area that typically during the day sometimes they would like to bed down in here. And these are actually old food plots. These two openings right in here, and basically since all this pressure has came, I've done away with putting the food plot in there. So,
because then if the deer are all here and there's all this honey, you're kind of keeping the deer right in their pocket.
Right, and you can almost kind of see that there's like the natural draw right through here.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, I'm actually going to go in here and clear out some of the debris and brush to eliminate them wanting to bed down there. And eventually they will know that this is the best spot for to get away and to hide.
These are the trails you currently have created. Here, let me just step out. And you know, since you've created these trails, you think the deer have been using them as their primary travel corridors?
Oh, 100%. They are lazy. They'll take the easy route if they know they're safe. 100%. Now, for the most part, on the back side of this trail here is an area where the younger bucks utilized it a lot last year. And, you know, year-and-a-half-year-old bucks were hanging out in that pretty much the entire year. And there's not much to that area in terms of coverage. They have pines directly behind them, and then an open trail right along here.
So is there anything you want to do in the overall plan for this area of the property, or you just want to let it be as it is?
I'm going to leave this side alone just because I have a group of bucks already utilizing this area. And what we are going to try to do is that if we're trying to hunt the lower part of the property, we're just going to simply follow the rock wall down to the bottom.
Now, those of you who read my book, Becoming a World-Class Hunter book, I was in my climber above this ladder stand right here. And I had grunted a couple times, and the brow tine buck that I was not allowed to shoot came out right here. And he came out right through here, came right over to the rock wall here, and this is where I could have shot him. It was about a 25-yard shot, right to here. This could have been the end of the brow tine buck, but he lived on, and as far as we know, nobody ever got him.
So we are at the pretty much the furthest point at the property at the bottom that we can get to. This is that real narrow stretch of land that we were talking about that comes almost to a point. Up behind us is that pipeline that we had been talking about, and right to my left, this is the property line right here of the land that has about 10 hunters on it for only about 8 acres. So this is where all the pressure gets, which benefits me from pushing all the deer up here, which my property is limited to just a few hunters.
And I hunted down here one time, and right over here by this blown down log, I had a group of 8 doe come in, and they all bedded down right there. And then they ended up getting up and leaving before. But I was set up in this tree right here, my climber. Okay.
So years ago when I first bought this property, I had this all food plot. And at that time there was very little pressure around me. But now I'm feeding the deer for myself, not for others.
Yeah, if you had the food plot down here, that would be helping those other guys.
Yeah.
That's one thing too, John, is a consideration is your land management plan has had to change over the year because of outside hunting pressure. And that's something you can keep in mind too, the viewer, is you have your hunting, your management plan in place now, but consider what factors could change. Let's say a property sells near you. How's that going to impact your overall plan? And maybe try to develop contingencies. If something does change, what am I going to change about my plan management? And so, you know, I know the deer used to bed down in here a lot because, like I said, I saw them. But maybe with the added pressure now, it's going to drive the deer farther from that point for bedding. And obviously, if you stop providing food here, you're not drawing the deer here anymore. You know what I mean? And that's why you want to focus it up at the other end of your property now. However, if those factors change again, you're all set right here. You can do another food plot. But that's just something for you guys out there who are watching to consider. What factors could change the way the deer are going to use your property, and maybe try to build some contingencies in there as far as what you can change about your management plan if that does happen.
Okay. So basically I want to pull any kind of movement on a regular basis from this lower section. And for the most part, this lower section ideally is going to only be good for the rut. When you have somebody that's not from the area traveling through.
Right. Somebody, you mean buck
right.
traveling through the...
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I like this plan, and I'd say let's head over to the next video and do some of the actual work. We'll video you clearing out for the food plot near the back here, setting up that bedding area a little bit more, and so I want you to actually see the work being done so you get an idea of what all is involved. So thanks for watching this one, first of all, and let's head over to that one, and I'll provide a link for that next one in the description section of this video. God bless you.